Good evening. Sir Keir Starmer just can't give a straight answer, can he?
Watch how tensions explode as Keir Starmer faces a relentless grilling that pushes him to the edge. In a heated Select Committee clash, the Prime Minister is challenged over Britain's military readiness, and what follows is nothing short of explosive. Accusations fly, tempers rise, and the pressure becomes unbearable. Is this leadership under fire, or control slipping in real time? Before we continue, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to Britain Daily. It's completely free and it helps us keep bringing you the hard-hitting stories that matter. Let's watch this explosive clip.
With respect, I'm clearing up the mess that I inherited from the last government. And
I dare say Winston Churchill had a bit of mess to clear up from the previous government. Margaret Thatcher had a bit of mess to clear up from the previous government. But now we are facing an urgency. Why were we so unready to defend Cyprus? It smacks of an enormous complacency.
But this smacks of the fact that for years there was underinvestment by the last government and the stripping out, following out of our armed forces.
Had 18 months
Copyright
to deal
Ben
with that.
Wallace, who was Defence Secretary.
I'm not making a party political point.
Well, honestly,
I agree with Ben
14
Wallace.
years of underinvestment,
I agree with
18
Ben
months of
Wallace.
Labour government.
But take drones, for example.
We're picking up the underinvestment of your government.
Thank you very much. And personnel is a really key issue too. What work are you doing with the Ministry of Defence to ensure that we are recruiting at the right rate that we need? Because there's been a long-standing issue with lack of personnel.
Yes, and thank you for raising that. We are turning around the recruitment, and we're now recruiting at a higher rate than was previously the case, holding on to people and retaining people for longer. I have no doubt that the fact that we put in place a pay increase that properly reflected the work that they're putting in and have made commitments when it comes to things like homes and accommodation are amongst the reasons for that. Not the only reasons, but they do matter, that people feel valued for the work that they're putting in. So we're turning that around. I have somewhere got the figures. I'm very happy to write to the committee and provide the details of them, but the direction of travel on retention and recruitment is now in the right place.
Thank you. Well, we know that the Defence Select Committee and the Public Accounts Committee have spent some time looking at those issues, so thank you for that.
Yes, and if there's any information that they need that they haven't got, I will obviously provide it.
Now to Bernard Jenkins MP.
Good afternoon, Prime Minister. But with the greatest respect about the Defence Investment Plan, the idea that the lack of the plan is not holding anything up is utterly ludicrous. Industry is crying out for certainty that it will bring, and the longer it's delayed, the longer that uncertainty exists. How can you create a 10-year plan without the Treasury making the necessary commitments for the next 10 years for the necessary levels of spending? They won't do that. The Chancellor says it's not on her desk, which means she said no, and she sent it back to the Ministry of Defence. How are you going to resolve this?
Well, it's my job to resolve it. What I want to do is to make sure that the investment we need is going in and that it's sustained over a 10-year period in accordance with the strategic review. And I want to get that right. What I don't want to do is to set out commitments without being absolutely clear where the money is coming from. Now, of course, we need to take the time to get that right. Of course, it's not easy. There was a lack of investment over many, many years. I think that's palpable, and everybody now accepts that the last government didn't invest anything like enough in our defence, and we're picking that up and turning it around. What I'm not going to do is put a plan that I can't explain exactly how it's going to be funded. We're finalising that. We're nearly there. It's my job to resolve it, and resolve it I will.
Well, you clearly haven't communicated the necessary urgency to the Treasury, who need to come up with the money. And at Cobra this afternoon, you might just ask the question why the Treasury does not seem to realise that we are already at war, and we need to be in a war-fighting mentality to deal with the emergencies that we're facing.
Well, I appreciate that, and that's why it's important that we are clear where the money is coming from. But because of the significant underfundment of the last government, we have to make sure that we get this right. To be perfectly honest, the zero-based review has thrown up all sorts of practices in the MOD, which have gone on for years, with overcommitment, underfunding, nothing done on time. All of that, I've said, I want the slate wiped clear. I'm not going on like that anymore. So the plan we're coming up with deals with, yes, the strategic plan, but I'm also clearing up the mess that I've inherited, because we can't go on in the way that when I opened the books and saw the way this has been done for years,
Minister, by all means,
I needed to change it, and that's what I'm doing.
By all means, take your party political swipes.
Well,
Here is a paper produced by me and a Labour MP, Derek Twigg, on the Defence Committee, with a foreword by Lord Robertson. We're all agreed that the government is not on a war footing and needs to be very quickly. Why is it not on a war footing now?
Because the strategic review commits us to a war footing, and we now need to put the funding in place in order to get there. I've already announced the increase in defence spending to 2.5%, something that didn't happen under the last government, and where at the election a credible proposition wasn't put forward by your party. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do it properly, and I want to be able to explain to Parliament where the money is coming from.
Well, it sounds as though you are at peace while we are actually at war.
With respect, I'm clearing up the mess that I inherited from the last government. And
I dare say Winston Churchill had a bit of mess to clear up from the previous government. Margaret Thatcher had a bit of mess to clear up from the previous government. But now we are facing an urgency. Why were we so unready to defend Cyprus?
Well, we've got a lot of defensive capability in Cyprus, as you know, including the air capability there. And I've been constantly talking to the Cypriots about this. I was on the phone yet again to the President on Saturday at some great length. His assessment, same as my assessment, is that our two military teams are working as closely as they've ever worked now, and we are absolutely determined to do everything we need to do to defend Cyprus. And that's what I discussed with him at some length, not for the first time in recent weeks, on Saturday morning.
So we could even stop a 150 km/h per mile an hour drone from getting through to hitting a sovereign base in Cyprus. That means we were unprepared. And the very fact that you immediately wanted to defend a destroyer meant you had failed to anticipate the need to defend Cyprus with a destroyer. But this smacks of a lack of war-fighting mentality that reaches right across the government, which is what we address in this paper about warfighting readiness, where we are not at. And the Chiefs of Staff are saying we need to be ready for war. So when are we going to be prepared, and prepared for what?
We are finalising the investment plan. That sits with the Strategic Defence Review.
It smacks of an enormous complacency.
But this smacks of the fact that for years there was underinvestment by the last government, and the stripping out, following out of our armed forces.
Had 18 months
Copyright
to deal
Ben
with that.
Wallace, who was
I'm
Defence
not
Secretary.
making a party political point.
Well, honestly,
I agree with Ben
14
Wallace.
years of underinvestment,
I agree with
18
Ben
months for
Wallace.
Labour government.
But take
We're
drones, for
picking-
example.
We're picking
The whole-
up the underinvestment of your government.
Last one, Mr.
The whole concept of warfighting has changed in the last 12 months.
I understand that.
I was in Ukraine very recently, and the Ukrainian armed forces are mystified and want to offer help, as they are offering help to the Gulf states, to the NATO frontline states and to NATO JEF about how to prepare for drone warfare.
Yes.
This is being held up by the lack of the defence industrial plan.
No, it's not. I had President Zelensky in last week. I speak to him very, very regularly. He was in last week for some time. I spoke exactly about this to him. I've been to see for myself on a number of occasions in Kyiv their capability. We are putting in backfill to that, working with them on industrial capability to produce drones with them. And I discussed this very issue with him last week. He did not, just for the record, he did not say that anything that they want to do is being held up by anything the UK is doing. On the contrary,
No.
he sees us as their foremost ally, and I'm very pleased that we've been able to achieve that, actually on a cross-party basis.
How many defence reviews do you think took place during the Second World War?
Well, I don't know off the top of my head, but I know that
Well, the
I've
answer
got
is
one in front of me.
none. Well, because when you are at war, you get on with it. You don't wait around for a plan.
I think I counted a lot of defence. The words defence and review, in whichever order you want to put them in plan, have been in many documents in my time in Parliament, for sure. Mr. Dessy.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Promise, I don't want to get into the party political of who hollowed out when and what the previous government did. Given the urgency of the situation, what I'm interested in is what is this government doing in the here and now to produce that defence investment plan. You will recall that during the last meeting of the liaison committee, you said that it would be coming very, very soon. It was promised by the autumn of last year. We're now at the end of March. Will this be produced before the PERDA period? And is the defence investment plan on your desk?
Yes, and we are finalising it, but I'm absolutely determined that I will make commitments with appropriate funding that I can be sure is there. I will not make commitments without being clear where the funding is coming from. That is what's gone on for years, and that's why we're in the mess that we're in. I'm not going to repeat it.
So to be clear, it's on your desk, and you are now.
I am bringing together. I am working on finalising it, and
it's at number 10 because we heard from the Treasurer, the Chancellor the other week that it wasn't.
Well, it's obviously cross-departmental.
Yes, but it's gone to you.
I am engaged in the process, actively engaged in the process, and determined that we will get this right.
What you've just witnessed wasn't just another routine committee exchange. It was a revealing moment of political pressure at the very highest level. When Keir Starmer stepped into that room, he wasn't just answering questions, he was defending his leadership. his decisions, and ultimately his credibility. But the real story here isn't just the clash itself, it's what it represents. The questions raised during this session go far beyond party politics. They strike at the heart of national security, military preparedness, and whether the UK is truly ready to face modern threats. When MPs pushed the Prime Minister on delays, funding gaps, and what some described as a lack of urgency, it exposed a deeper concern shared across Westminster. And Starmer's response, repeatedly pointing to past governments, insisting he's clearing up the mess. But for many watching, that answer may not be enough anymore. Because here's the reality. Voters don't judge leaders on what they inherit, they judge them on what they fix. This exchange also highlighted something else, growing impatience. Not just from opposition MPs, but from within the wider political system. The tone, the interruptions, the sharp back and forth, all signs of a debate that's no longer polite or procedural. It's becoming urgent. And then there's the bigger question raised during the session. Are we already in a new kind of conflict environment without fully realising it? With references to drone warfare, global instability, and shifting military strategies, this wasn't just about budgets. It was about whether the UK is adapting fast enough to a rapidly changing world. And when those concerns are met with delayed plans and unfinished strategies, frustration is inevitable. To his supporters, Starmer may appear cautious, determined not to overpromise without funding. But to critics, that caution looks like hesitation at a time when decisiveness is demanded. That's why moments like this matter. Because they strip away the scripted speeches and reveal how leaders perform under real pressure, when the questions aren't friendly, when the stakes are high, and when every answer is scrutinised. So the question now is simple. Did Starmer hold his ground, or did the pressure start to show cracks? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Was this a fair grilling, or did it go too far? And if you want more breakdowns like this, real moments from Parliament, unfiltered and explained, make sure you're subscribed. Before you go, don't forget to like this video, share it with others who follow UK politics, and subscribe to Britain Daily. It's completely free, and it helps us keep bringing you the stories that matter most. Stay informed, because moments like this shape the future.